My engagement ring struck the tile and spun beneath Malcolm's kitchen table. The thin metallic wire lasted longer than it should have, circling under the amber pendant light before collapsing beside his bare foot. Malcolm looked down at it, then at me. Rainwater dripped from my hair onto the borrowed sweatshirt clinging cold against my shoulders, and somewhere behind us his radiator clicked like an impatient clock. I ended it, I said. The words scraped my throat raw. 3 hours earlier, I had been standing beneath crystal chandeliers while my fiancé explained that marrying a photographer with an unstable career was becoming an unnecessary risk. He had spoken softly, almost kindly, as though my life were a bad investment he regretted making. I had removed the ring before he finished. Malcolm had found me outside the restaurant beneath a red awning, soaked through and unable to unlock my phone because my fingers would not stop shaking. Now he crouched, picked up the ring, and placed it face down on the counter without examining the diamond. He did not ask whether I was certain. He did not tell me I deserved better. He simply set a ceramic bowl in front of me, fragrant with tomato, basil, and black pepper, then pushed a clean spoon across the worn wooden table. "It's hot," he said. "Give it a minute. I don't want soup." "Then hold the bowl." I wrapped both hands around it. Heat seeped into my palms, slow and almost painful. Malcolm crossed the kitchen in gray sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, moving quietly through the narrow apartment as he found a towel, dry socks, and the thick navy blanket he kept folded over his couch. He draped the towel around my shoulders, but stopped there, leaving me to decide whether to use it. That restraint cracked something the breakup had not. I pressed the rough cotton against my mouth until my breathing steadied. "You can say it," I whispered. "Say what?" "That you warned me." Malcolm leaned against the counter, arms loose at his sides. The refrigerator hummed between us. Outside, tires hissed over wet pavement 6 floors below. "You didn't come here for a verdict, Amara." He was the only person who shortened my name that way without making it feel smaller. "Then tell me how to fix this." "No," I looked up. "No. You made one decision tonight. You don't owe anyone another before sunrise." He pulled a pillow from the armchair and placed it at one end of the couch. No instructions. No bright promise that tomorrow would be better. He left room for the night to remain terrible. I tried the soup after the steam stopped burning my face. It tasted smoky and too salty, exactly like Malcolm always made it. My phone vibrated on the table. Once, twice, then continuously, its white screen flashing my former fiancé's name across the dim kitchen. Malcolm did not reach for it. He turned his own phone face down and sat across from me. That was all. I was the one who silenced mine. The vibration died beneath my fingertips, and with it went the future I had spent 4 years arranging. Venue deposits, shared keys, Sunday dinners, a white dress waiting in my closet. I gave him everything, I said, and he still looked at me like I was something he could return. Malcolm's jaw tightened, but his voice remained level. "What do you need from me tonight?" The question carried no hidden demand. I stared at the ring on the counter, its band casting a small broken shadow beneath the light. "Witness me saying this." He pulled out the chair beside mine and sat close enough that our knees almost touched, but he did not take my hand. "I'm listening." I removed the last damp strand of hair stuck to my cheek. My fingers had finally stopped trembling. "I will never love anyone again." Malcolm inhaled quietly through his nose. For 1 second, I expected him to challenge me, to call the vow dramatic or temporary. Instead, he nodded once. "Okay, that's all you're going to say? It's your promise, not mine." The rain tapped harder against the window, filling the silence with thousands of tiny impacts. He carried my untouched bowl to the sink, switched off the overhead light, and left the stove lamp glowing so the apartment would not go completely dark. Before disappearing into his bedroom, he placed a glass of water beside the couch and set my phone charger within reach. "Take the bed," I said. "I am." "Then where am I sleeping?" Malcolm glanced toward the blanket, one eyebrow lifting. "Exactly where you always do when your life catches fire." The bedroom door closed softly behind him. I lay beneath the navy blanket, surrounded by the scent of cedar detergent and the faint trace of his cologne. I had expected heartbreak to feel like emptiness. Instead, Malcolm's apartment was full of small proofs that I had been seen. Dry socks warming my feet, water by my elbow, silence without judgment. On the counter, the diamond no longer looked like a promise. It looked like evidence from a life I had escaped. Yet as I listened to Malcolm moving behind the wall, careful not to make enough noise to disturb me, a more unsettling thought took its place. If he refused to repair me, why did being near him make me feel less broken? By June, the radiator pipes in my apartment had been stripped from the walls, and plaster dust floated through the hot air like pale smoke. The contractor promised 6 weeks. Then he uncovered damaged plumbing beneath the kitchen floor and changed his estimate to sometime before fall. I could afford repairs or a hotel, not both. Malcolm did not offer to rescue me. He slid a spare key across the coffee shop table, its brass edge scraping against the cool marble. My couch already knows your sleeping position, Mara. I closed my fingers around the key. 4 weeks. Your promise, he said, lifting his iced coffee. Not mine. By sunset, I had carried 2 camera cases, 3 boxes, and 1 stubborn basil plant into his apartment. Malcolm cleared half the hall closet without being asked, while I claimed a kitchen shelf and taped a handwritten line down its center. Mara. Malcolm. No cross-border theft. By the 3rd morning, my expensive coffee beans had migrated to his side. In retaliation, I replaced his color-coded spice labels with tiny portraits of him making increasingly offended faces. Our days settled into a rhythm neither of us designed. The air conditioner rattled at midnight. His old records crackled through breakfast. He left sliced peaches beside my editing station because I forgot meals when working, and I began setting the coffee maker before his early runs. Yet I was not merely receiving his care anymore. When Malcolm came home one evening with rain darkening his gray t-shirt and exhaustion pulling at his mouth, I closed his laptop before he could open it. Shoes off. Excuse me. You've worked 12 hours. I'm cooking. The cast iron pan hissed when butter touched it, filling the kitchen with garlic and rosemary. Malcolm leaned against the counter, barefoot, sleeves pushed to his elbows, watching me burn the first grilled cheese and save the second. You know, he said, most people use recipes. Most people lack vision. Most people own smoke detectors that haven't developed trust issues. I laughed hard enough to drop the spatula. His answering laugh was lower, warm beneath the rain ticking against the windows, and something in the room shifted before I could name it. A Saturday heat wave trapped us indoors beneath hard white sunlight. Malcolm was repairing a loose cabinet hinge when a bright square of light crossed his face. Don't move, I said. I reached for the camera on the table. Mara, I have a screwdriver in my mouth. Exactly. Very editorial. He rolled his eyes but stayed beside the cabinet. Through the viewfinder, familiar details rearranged themselves. The line of his jaw shadowed by afternoon stubble, a bead of sweat at his temple, the strength in his hand as he steadied the wooden door. Then he looked directly into my lens. The teasing disappeared. The shutter clicked once, sharp as a lock turning. I lowered the camera, but Malcolm stepped closer and held out his hand. My turn. You don't know how to use that. You've explained aperture to me during 3 separate birthdays. He took the camera carefully, forcing me to surrender the one place where I usually controlled distance. I stood in the sunlit kitchen while the lens faced me. What am I supposed to do? Nothing. His voice softened. Just let me see you. The shutter clicked. Outside, a siren faded into traffic. Cold air brushed the sweat at the back of my neck, but my skin remained strangely warm. Later, while Malcolm showered, I opened the photographs on my laptop. His portrait appeared first. Without the frame of friendship I had always placed around him, there was only a man in summer light looking at me as if the camera were no barrier at all. Then I opened the image he had taken. I barely recognized the woman staring back, not because she looked healed, but because she looked awake. The bathroom door opened, releasing steam and the clean scent of soap. Malcolm entered in a navy shirt, rubbing a towel over his damp hair. Delete it if you hate it, he said. My finger rested over the key. I don't hate it. His hand stopped. I turned the laptop toward him and selected both photographs. I'm keeping them. Malcolm looked from his face to mine on the glowing screen. Together? I swallowed. Together. The images slid into the same folder, side by side, and the ordinary distance between best friends suddenly seemed like something we had invented, and something neither of us knew how to keep. The ceiling fan slowed with a tired click, and then the apartment went black. Outside, thunder rolled between the buildings while rain struck the windows in hard silver sheets. The air conditioner died with a sigh, leaving behind wet pavement, candle wax, and the trapped heat of August. I found Malcolm in the kitchen, opening drawers by the flashlight on his phone. Tell me you own candles. I own one candle, he said. It smells like cedar and poor financial decisions. A match scratched. Amber light spread across his face and caught in the framed photographs we had left beside my laptop. Our portraits still sat together on the screen, preserved beneath the black glass. Malcolm carried the candle to the living room. I followed with 2 sweating glasses of water, and we sat on the hardwood floor because the couch held too much heat. Thunder shook the window. My knee touched his. Neither of us moved. You've been quiet since the photographs, I said. His thumb traced condensation down his glass. I'm trying to respect the rules. The rules about cabinet space? The other ones. The flame leaned beneath another gust pressing against the windows. Malcolm set his glass down with careful precision. You came here after someone made you feel like loving you was a bad investment. I won't use that wound to get closer to you. My fingers tightened around the cold glass. But pretending nothing changed would be another kind of lie. He looked directly at me, candlelight sharpening the line of his jaw. What I feel for you doesn't fit inside friendship anymore, Amara. The rain seemed to rush into the silence. I waited for a joke, some familiar smile that would return us to safer ground. None came. You're gay, I said, hating how the words sounded, less like a fact than a locked door I had grabbed for in the dark. Malcolm's gaze did not leave mine. That's the word I use. It's part of me, and I'm not ashamed of it. But it doesn't erase what's happening here. You can't just change what it means. I'm not asking you to define me. His voice remained low, but his hand curled against the floorboards. I'm telling you the truth about how I feel. He rose and crossed to the window, giving me space even after making the room feel impossibly small. You don't owe me an answer. You don't owe me anything. The power flickered once, briefly exposing every familiar object. The camera bag by the chair, his shoes beside mine, our 2 coffee mugs in the sink, before darkness returned. He had made the first confession, but he was already stepping back to protect the boundary I had drawn. I stood. The floor was warm beneath my bare feet. Malcolm turned when I reached him, and I saw the question he refused to ask. I placed my glass on the windowsill. Then I caught the front of his shirt and kissed him. It was brief, unpracticed, and unmistakable. His breath stopped against my cheek, but he did not seize control. One hand lifted only as far as my elbow, waiting. That restraint broke something open. I kissed him again, slower this time, choosing the contact with my eyes closed while thunder pressed through the glass. His fingers settled lightly at my arm. No demand. No claim. Just Malcolm, standing still enough for me to leave. I did. The instant I stepped back, cold air spilled from the vent as the electricity returned. White ceiling light flooded the room. The fan began turning, the refrigerator hummed, and the laptop woke behind us, displaying our portraits side by side. I released his shirt as if the fabric had burned me. Mara, Malcolm's voice was rough. I backed into the coffee table. A camera lens cap struck the floor and spun between us, circling until it fell flat. I can't. You just did. There was no accusation in his voice, which made the words worse. I pressed 2 fingers to my mouth. The kiss remained there, warm, real, and impossible to dismiss as loneliness. That shouldn't have happened. Malcolm lowered his hand. Something shuddered behind his eyes, quiet and immediate. Do you mean you didn't want it? I opened my mouth, but the lie would not come. Rainwater streamed down the window behind him, breaking the city lights into trembling ribbons. I wanted it, I whispered. That's the problem. I turned toward the hallway before he could answer, leaving him beside the recovered candle and the photographs that had first shown us what we were no longer able to unsee. At the bedroom door, his voice reached me over the restored hum of the apartment. Then tell me what happens now. My hand closed around the doorknob, but I had already crossed the only line that had ever made the answer simple. Morning light slid through the blinds in pale stripes, warming the hardwood while the air conditioner rattled against August heat. From behind the guest room door, Amara listened to Malcolm rinse 1 coffee mug, set 1 plate on the drying rack, and leave without knocking. For 6 days, she arranged her hours around his absence. She edited photographs at cafes until closing, returned after his bedroom light went dark, and answered his careful texts with practical fragments. 8 already. Working late. Don't wait up. Malcolm stopped asking what happened next. The apartment changed with him. No music drifted from the kitchen. No second cup appeared beside the coffee maker. Their paired portraits remained on the table, turned face down beneath a thin coat of dust. On the seventh evening, Amara came home to the dry scrape of packing tape. Malcolm knelt beside an open suitcase in the living room, folding shirts beneath the amber glow of a floor lamp. Cardboard boxes stood against the wall. The room smelled of coffee, adhesive, and the basil plant wilting on the windowsill. "Are you moving?" she asked. Malcolm pressed the tape flat with his thumb. "New York. A production company offered me a long-term job." The refrigerator hummed into the silence. Amara set down her camera bag, but its strap slipped from her shoulder and struck the floor. "Since when?" "The offer came in June. I turned it down because I had reasons to stay." His gaze met hers without accusation, which made the distance between them feel measured rather than accidental. "They called again yesterday. I accepted. Because I've been avoiding you? Because I finally believed what you were showing me." Malcolm stood and carried a stack of books toward the box. Amara stepped into his path. "I panicked. I know. You said you wouldn't push me." "I didn't." His voice remained low, but the book covers creaked beneath his tightening fingers. "You kissed me, told me you wanted it, and then made yourself disappear inside an apartment 1,200 square feet wide. Respecting your boundary doesn't require me to live inside its punishment." The words landed with the clean snap of a shutter. Amara moved aside. Malcolm placed the books in the box, and for once, he did not soften the truth after delivering it. "How long?" she asked. "A year to start." Outside, a bus exhaled at the curb, brakes hissing through the sealed windows. "When do you leave?" "Friday morning." 3 days. Amara looked toward the kitchen and saw every quiet kindness she had mistaken for permanence. The chipped blue bowl he always gave her, the grocery list in his square handwriting, the empty hook where his keys usually hung. She had thought distance would return them to safety. Instead, it had given him a departure date. Malcolm lifted the paired portraits from the table and held them out. "These are yours." Amara did not take them. "You're in them. So are you. Then they belong here. This lease ends next month." He placed the photographs beside her camera bag. The decision made the apartment feel suddenly temporary. The walls too bare, the air too cold against her arms. Malcolm zipped the suitcase, and the metal teeth closed with a final, even sound. "I'm staying with a friend until my flight," he said. "You can remain here until your place is ready." He reached for his keys. Amara caught his wrist, acting before fear could turn into another locked door. His skin was warm beneath her fingers, but he did not move closer. "Don't leave tonight." Malcolm looked at her hand, then at her face. "Give me one reason that isn't guilt." Her grip loosened. All the safe words gathered first: history, friendship, bad timing. But none could explain why the sight of his suitcase made breathing feel like work. Malcolm gently freed his wrist and crossed the room. The lock clicked behind him. On the table, his portrait showed Amara the man she had finally learned to see, while the flight confirmation glowing on his abandoned tablet reduced the time she had left to 72 hours. Glasses chimed beneath amber pendant lights, and the restaurant windows held the last bruised colors of sunset. Amara had nearly declined the gathering, but Malcolm's unanswered messages and the 72-hour countdown had made solitude unbearable. Their friends crowded the long table, passing fries across scarred wood while music pulsed softly beneath the scrape of silverware. Malcolm's empty chair stood opposite her. Someone asked whether he was really leaving for New York. Another friend laughed into his beer. "Give it 6 months. This thing with Amara will pass." Malcolm's gay. He's probably confused because they've been living together. A few uneasy smiles followed. The air conditioning raised goosebumps along Amara's arms, yet heat climbed beneath her collar. "Don't," she said. The laughter thinned but did not vanish. "Come on, Mara. You know what I mean. He's having some identity crisis, and you're fresh out of an engagement. Nobody needs to make it dramatic." Amara set down her glass. The base struck the table with a clean crack that turned every face toward her. You don't get to call his feelings a phase because they don't fit inside the version of him that makes you comfortable. Silence widened beneath the hanging lights. Someone glanced toward the bar. Another reached for a napkin and folded it into smaller and smaller squares. "We're trying to protect both of you," a woman beside her said. "People will talk. Your clients already think your personal life is messy. After the engagement, this could make things worse." Amara's phone vibrated against the table. An email preview from a gallery appeared on the screen, requesting final materials for a commercial exhibition that could steady her faltering career. She turned the phone face down, then let them talk. Her voice carried farther than she intended, cutting through the clatter from the kitchen. Malcolm has spent years showing up for every person at this table without asking us to approve the words he uses for himself. If he says he's gay, that belongs to him. If he says what he feels for me is real, that belongs to him too. Neither truth cancels the other because you want a simpler story. A chair scraped sharply. So you're together now? Someone asked. The question landed where all her safe answers had once lived. Amara saw Malcolm's suitcase closing, his wrist slipping from her hand, and the paired portraits waiting beneath the apartment's cold light. I don't know what we are, she said. I know I hurt him because I was afraid of what people would think, including people in this room. And I know he matters more to me than looking uncomplicated. No one laughed this time. The restaurant smelled of grilled onions and spilled beer, suddenly too close and too warm. Amara rose, left cash beneath her untouched plate, and walked out while two friends called after her. Night rain had begun, fine and cold against her cheeks. Across the street, under the white glow of a pharmacy sign, Malcolm stood motionless with a duffel bag over one shoulder. He had heard enough. Traffic hissed over wet pavement between them. Amara crossed before the signal changed, forcing a taxi to brake and sound its horn. She stopped inches from him, breath clouding in the chilled air. I should have said it when you were still inside that apartment, she told him. I won't let anyone reduce you to a label, and I won't pretend you mean less to me just to protect my reputation. Malcolm's fingers tightened around the canvas strap. For one suspended second, warmth entered his eyes. Then his mouth settled into a harder line. Defending me was brave, he said. But bravery in front of them doesn't tell me what you want from me. The rain darkened his coat as he stepped closer, leaving no room for another safe answer. Before I leave, Amara, decide whether you want me, or whether you only need to prove you're not ashamed of me. Cold rain slipped beneath the awning and tapped against Malcolm's duffel bag, each drop darkening the canvas. A bus sighed at the curb, releasing a gust of diesel and wet air before dragging its lights down the avenue. Amara waited for his answer with her coat clutched shut, but Malcolm stepped past her and pushed open the door of a 24-hour coffee shop. Inside, fluorescent light flattened the empty booths, and the sharp smell of burnt espresso hung above the radiator's metallic heat. Malcolm placed his bag beside a table, removed his damp coat, and stayed standing. You asked me not to leave without a reason, he said. So I'm giving you the whole one. Amara slid into the booth opposite him. Water traced the ends of her hair and spotted the scratched laminate between them. Malcolm turned the sugar dispenser once, then stopped it with his palm. I've loved men, he said. And I've loved women. I knew that before you met me. Her fingers loosened around the paper napkin. Then why did you always call yourself gay? Because it was the word that felt safest after the last woman I trusted decided my history with men made me unreliable. The refrigerator behind the counter clicked off, leaving the rain suddenly louder against the windows. Malcolm looked directly at Amara. She kept asking whether I would wake up one morning and want something she couldn't give me. Every disagreement became evidence. Every male friend became a threat. By the time we ended, I was exhausted from defending feelings I had already chosen. He drew a slow breath. Gay gave people fewer questions to use against me. It became a shelter. Not a lie, but not the whole house either. Amara reached across the table. You never had to hide that from me. Malcolm moved his hand before she could touch it. The refusal was gentle, but the empty strip of laminate between them felt wider than the rain-swept street. I wasn't hiding from you. I was protecting the part of me that got treated like a problem to solve. A coffee machine released a burst of steam behind the counter. Amara flinched at the hiss, then steadied herself. I don't think you're a problem. No, right now. You think I'm an answer. Malcolm pulled out the documents confirming his New York job and placed them on the table. A Friday departure time showed beneath the company letterhead. Your fiancé made you feel disposable. I made you feel seen. That difference matters, but it doesn't automatically make this love. Amara's jaw tightened. You don't get to decide what I feel. You're right. Malcolm signed the final acceptance line, the pen scratching through the coffee shop's hush. I only get to decide what I'm willing to become. He capped the pen and pushed the papers into an overnight envelope. I won't be the man you used to prove your former fiancé was wrong. I won't be proof that you can survive heartbreak, and I won't let the way I love become medicine you take until you recognize yourself again. Amara rose so quickly that the table shuddered, rattling the metal spoon in its saucer. So that's it. You tell me you love me and leave before I can understand what that means. Malcolm picked up the envelope and carried it to the counter. The adhesive strip tore with a dry rip. He sealed it, handed it to the overnight courier clerk, and watched the clerk scan the label. A single electronic beep confirmed the choice. When Malcolm returned, he put on his cold, wet coat and lifted the duffel bag. I'm leaving because I love you, he said. If I stayed, every meal, every photograph, every night in that apartment would make it easier for you to choose relief and call it certainty. Amara stood motionless beneath the buzzing lights. And if I become certain after you're gone? Malcolm opened the door. Rain-scented wind scattered the napkins on their table and chilled the damp fabric at her shoulders. Then come to me with something that belongs to you, he said, not something your pain chose in your place. The door shut behind him, and through the streaming glass, Amara watched him cross the street without turning back. For the first time, Malcolm had not remained where she left him. He had chosen the cost of loving her, and left her to discover whether she could choose him without needing him to save her. The refrigerator's low hum filled the apartment, broken every few seconds by water ticking from Malcolm's umbrella onto the hardwood floor. By dawn, he had collected the last of his things and gone, leaving the guest room closet open and one pale rectangle on the wall where his framed portrait had hung. Amara stood barefoot in the blue morning light, holding the commercial gallery contract against the cold kitchen counter. The exhibition was scheduled to open Friday night, hours before Malcolm's flight. Its sponsor would cover her overdue studio rent, introduce her to 3 agency directors, and place her safest photographs, polished hotels, immaculate watches, anonymous models, before people who could rescue her career. Her former fiancé's words returned with brutal precision. Marriage to a photographer with an unstable career is an unnecessary risk. She had spent months pretending his judgment had only ended their engagement. In truth, she had allowed it to become a verdict. The vow she made afterward had never protected her from love. It had protected her from placing her worth in someone else's hands, then waiting for him to close them. At 9, the gallery director called. We need your final approval before noon. Amara looked toward the dining table. Contact sheets covered its scratched wood, Malcolm laughing with flour on his cheek, Malcolm asleep beside an unfinished mug, Malcolm looking directly into her lens during their improvised summer shoot. Between them were self-portraits she had nearly deleted, her face blurred behind rain-streaked glass, her hand reaching into an empty frame, Malcolm's shadow crossing hers without swallowing it. The campaign images are approved, the director continued over the crisp rustle of paper. No substitutions this late. Amara opened the contract to the cancellation clause. The fee would empty most of her savings. The sponsorship would disappear. So would the professional introductions she had spent years trying to earn. Then cancel the exhibition, she said. Silence pressed against her ear. Amara, this show could stabilize your entire career. Not if I have to disappear from my own work to make it safe. She signed the withdrawal form while the director was still warning her. The pen scratched loudly across the page. The radiator clicked beneath the window, pushing dry heat against her ankles. When she sent the document, the confirmation arrived with a flat electronic chime. Deposit forfeited. Sponsorship terminated. Gallery date released. No one had abandoned her. No one had judged her unworthy. This loss carried her own signature. She turned off her phone, drew the curtains, and carried the contact sheets into the darkroom. Red light washed the walls as chemical trays breathed out their sharp, metallic odor. For hours, Amara printed the photographs she had been too frightened to name honestly. Friendship was Malcolm handing her dry socks after the broken engagement. Identity was his face divided by window light, neither half erasing the other. Desire was the paired portrait from the blackout, their bodies angled toward each other before either admitted why. Love was not Malcolm rescuing her. It was the space he had left, and the person she became when no one remained to confirm her value. Near midnight, the final print surfaced beneath the developer. In it, Malcolm stood behind the camera while Amara faced the lens, unguarded, choosing to be seen. She pinned it beside the others and titled the collection in black ink, What Belongs to Us, What Belongs to Me. Then she photographed every print, assembled the images into a digital sequence, and attached the file to a message addressed to Malcolm. The apartment smelled of coffee, wet paper, and fixer. Her hands trembled above the keyboard, but she did not ask him to return. She typed only, "I found the answer. I need to give it to you before you leave." Across the screen, the clock changed to 12:01 a.m. Friday. Malcolm's flight was now less than 10 hours away. Amara saved the draft, reached for her camera bag, and booked the earliest ride to the airport. Cold blue light washed across the airport windows as departure announcements dissolved beneath the rumble of rolling suitcases. Amara reached Terminal B with fixers still clinging to her fingertips and her camera bag striking her hip. The departure board flickered above the security line. New York, on time. Boarding closed in 4 minutes. She called Malcolm while weaving between travelers, but each ring ended against the same sterile recorded voice. At the checkpoint, a security officer raised one palm. Ticket and ID. Amara stopped so abruptly that someone's suitcase clipped her ankle. She had neither. Beyond the glass partition, the concourse stretched toward gates she could not enter. "My best friend is on that flight." "I'm sorry, ma'am." The officer's voice remained gentle and immovable. "You can't go through without a boarding pass." Amara searched the moving crowd for Malcolm's dark coat, for the familiar tilt of his shoulders, for one last chance to place the photographs in his hands. An announcement chimed overhead. Final boarding for New York had ended. On the rain-streaked window beyond the checkpoint, a plane began easing away from its gate. Its lights smeared gold across the wet pavement while the engines deepened into a vibration she could feel through the soles of her shoes. Amara pressed Malcolm's contact again. Voicemail. This time, she did not hang up. "I missed you," she said, breath clouding the phone screen. "But I'm not going to make that your responsibility." Travelers flowed around her as she sat on the cold terrazzo floor beneath the departure board. She opened the draft she had saved at 12:01, attached the completed sequence, then removed the single guarded sentence she had written hours earlier. Her thumbs hovered above the keyboard. For years, photographs had let her stand behind a lens while other people decided what the image meant. Not this one. She typed beneath the collection. "Malcolm, I know what I'm choosing now. I love you. Not because you stayed when someone else left, and not because you made the apartment feel safe. I love the man who never demanded that I become easier to understand. I love your honesty, even when it cost you something. I love the way you see me without claiming the right to define me. And I love you as you are, not as gay, not as an exception, and not as a version of you that would make this simpler for me. Your identity belongs to you. My choice belongs to me. I am choosing you." The cursor blinked beside the final period. Sending it meant surrendering the last refuge of ambiguity. Malcolm could read every photograph, hear every word, and still decide that leaving was the honest choice. Amara would have no silence left to hide inside, and no one else to blame for what followed. She pressed send. The progress circle crawled across the screen while the aircraft turned toward the runway. One by one, the images disappeared into the cloud. Malcolm laughing through steam in the kitchen, his hand hovering near hers without taking it. Their paired portraits lit by the returning electricity. Amara facing his camera without armor. The file delivered as the plane accelerated through the rain. Its wheels lifted, and the silver body vanished into the low morning clouds. No cinematic pursuit could reach him now. No last-minute embrace could answer for either of them. Amara rose, tightened both hands around the strap of her camera bag, and walked away from security without deleting the message. Halfway to the exit, her phone vibrated. The screen showed no reply, only confirmation that the collection had been opened somewhere above the clouds. Then 3 dots appeared beneath Malcolm's name. They remained for several seconds, vanished, and returned. Amara stood beneath the fluorescent lights while the automatic doors breathed cold rain-scented air into the terminal. Malcolm had her answer now. What he chose to do with it belonged entirely to him. A soft chime sounded from Amara's phone as the automatic doors opened again, pushing a ribbon of wet, cold air across the polished terminal floor. Rain hissed against the glass behind her. Malcolm's message filled the screen. "Don't leave the airport." Amara stopped beneath the fluorescent glare, one hand locked around the textured strap of her camera bag. A second message arrived before she could answer. "I boarded because leaving was the choice I made before you gave me the truth. I'm not turning this plane around." But New York doesn't get to decide what happens to us. High above the clouds, Malcolm sat beneath the dim amber reading light, the low vibration of the engines traveling through his seat. On his tablet, the final portrait showed them on opposite sides of a darkroom table, divided by a strip of white light, but looking directly at each other. He pressed the call button. When Amara answered, the terminal's departure announcements collided with the muted engine noise between them. "I saw every photograph," he said. "You didn't make me your shelter." Her fingers loosened around the bag. "No, and you didn't ask me to come back. Because loving you doesn't give me ownership of your choices." Malcolm lowered his forehead to the cool airplane window. Dawn burned pale gold along the wing. "Then let me make one now. Keep building the collection. I'll take the New York position, and you'll rebuild your career on work that belongs to you. No rescue. No debt. No pretending distance is romantic when it's hard." His voice caught once, then steadied. "And when I land, I want to begin this honestly. Not as your cure. Not as the version of me other people can explain. As the man who loves you." Amara crossed to the broad window overlooking the runway. The glass felt cold beneath her fingertips, and jet fuel hung sharply in the damp morning air. "I love you too," she said. "Not because you stayed when everyone else left. Not because you made me feel safe. I love the way you notice what people hide. I love that you refuse to let me use you, even when walking away hurt you. I want the difficult version, the flights, the time zones, the days we misunderstand each other and have to speak again." A quiet laugh traveled through the phone, roughened by exhaustion. "That sounds inconvenient." "Completely. Good. I don't trust easy promises anymore." 3 months later, warm gallery lights glowed across brick walls in a small independent space in New York. Voices moved softly over hardwood floors, mixed with the mineral smell of fresh paint and rain drying on wool coats. "What belongs to us? What belongs to me?" hung, without commercial slogans or polished explanations. At the center stood their paired portraits from the blackout night. Amara adjusted one frame by a fraction of an inch before a familiar reflection appeared in its glass. Malcolm had come directly from work, his collar open and rain silvering his dark coat. He did not ask whether the exhibition had saved her career. She did not ask whether he had come to save the evening. He simply held out his hand. This time, Amara crossed the space first. Her palm met his, warm and certain, and the room continued around them without requiring either one to explain who Malcolm was or what Amara's love made her. "Still afraid?" he asked. She looked at their photograph, then back at the living man beside her. "Yes." Malcolm's thumb moved once across her knuckles. "Me too." Amara rose onto her toes and kissed him beneath the gallery lights, not from panic, gratitude, or loneliness, but as a decision she was prepared to keep making after the certainty wore thin. She had once sworn never to love again. With Malcolm, she learned that love was not surrendering herself, but choosing someone without abandoning who she was.